Of course, before we start programming your robot, you need to build a robot. Since this course is designed primarily for teachers, I'm going to be demonstrating things using a robot that was built according to the directions in the booklet that came with the educational version of the kit. If you've lost your booklet or have the commercial version of the kit, don't worry. Our resources page, which you can find up above here somewhere, has links to LEGO's website where you can download the instructions for both the educational and commercial kits. We also have links to other websites that offer free designs for building NXT robots. Remember, the heart of your robot is the NXT brick. It's where pretty much everything happens. You plug your sensors and motors into it, and it's going to be running those programs that you write that sense and or do things. So what is a LEGO robot? Well, it's just the NXT bricks plus some sensors and motors and a bunch of LEGO bricks. Before we go on, it's probably worth mentioning that once you build a robot that includes an NXT brick, many people, myself included, sometimes get a little bit wishy-washy about their language and use the terms NXT brick and robot somewhat interchangeably. For example, technically speaking, the only part of the robot that we ever connect to your computer is the NXT brick. Remember, it's the NXT brick that has the socket where we can plug in that USB cable. But once your NXT brick is part of a robot, it certainly seems reasonable to say that you're connecting your robot to the computer. Similarly, technically speaking, we'll be recharging the NXT's battery, but many people just say they're recharging their robot. From my perspective, this isn't a big deal. Feel free to use the technical language or the more informal language. But it is important that you understand that when someone tells you to do something with your robot, like connect your robot to your computer, most of the time the part of your robot that's involved will be the NXT brick. Okay, so it's almost time to build your robot. If you've never followed the building directions in a LEGO kit before, there's a few things you should know. LEGO directions are almost always entirely graphical. Presumably they leave out the words so that the book can be understood regardless of the language spoken by the user. A project generally starts out with a picture of the final item to be built. Then, for each step, you'll see a list of the number and types of the parts that you need. This 4x means that we need 4 of these little black connectors. And this 3 in a circle indicates that the part is 3 LEGO studs, that is 3 of those round connector bumps long. Measuring LEGO studs can be a pain, so the directions often include the actual size diagrams of some part. If a part's shown on the page with the 1-to-1 notation, that means you can lay the actual part on top of the picture to measure it. It's a really good idea to hunt for all the parts that are listed before you begin each step. I find it's useful to have a plastic bowl around when I'm building, and I just put all the parts for the upcoming step together in the bowl. Then I'm less likely to lose them. Finally, once you've got all the correct parts for a step, you can follow the step-by-step building instructions, which will show you how to construct each piece. 2 other things you should know about. This switcheroo icon means flip over the piece you're currently working on. And finally, the 2x in this building instruction means follow these directions 2 times. In other words, you'll need to make 2 sets of these things. By the way, LEGO takes great care in making these parts lists. If you're asked to find 2 things that look like this first picture, LEGO means exactly like this, and something that looks like the second picture won't work. LEGO directions are very specific about the color, shape, and size of the parts that they ask you to use. What if you can't find a part in your kit? In my experience, if you have a brand new kit, there's a better than 99% chance the part's actually in there and you just can't find it. Look again, and then get one of your students to look for you. It's probably in there. If you're genuinely missing a part, you can contact LEGO for a replacement. I do have one important warning, however. Some NXT educational kits included a few parts that look slightly different in color or shape from the descriptions in the book. How do you know if you got one of these kits? Well, If your kit has some substitutions, then you'll find an equivalency chart on page 2 of your booklet. If you don't see this chart on page 2, you don't have to worry about this at all. But if you do see this chart, how do you interpret it? Well, this example means whenever we tell you to use a black piece like this, you really should use a blue piece that looks like the one on the right instead. It's not wonderful, but you'll get used to it. Phew. Okay, it's time for you to get started playing with the Lego itself and building a robot. If you have the educational set, you should first sort all the parts into your trays, and then get started building the basic robot base found in your book. This robot includes motors, but no sensors for the moment. I've got 2 different versions of the instruction book, but in both books, the directions start on page 8 and continue through page 22. Here's what those pages look like. If you have the commercial set, then I recommend that you build the Tribot, and you can find a link to the instructions for building that robot on the resources page above.